Some places hold secrets, dark, ancient secrets that linger like a shadow in the corner of your eye. Blackwood Manor was once such place, a house steeped in whispers of tragedy and disappearance. The Henderson family had no idea what they were stepping into when they moved there in the winter of 1985. For them, it was a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the struggles of the past. For the house, it was an opportunity, a new family to claim. The house stood at the edge of an isolated town, its Gothic architecture towering against the bleak winter sky. Icicles hung from the eaves like jagged teeth, and snow blanketed the ground in a deceptive purity. To the Hendersons, it seemed charming, a place with history and character. The townsfolk, however, avoided it with a mixture of fear and unease. There were whispers about the house, rumors of people who had vanished without a trace. But Mark Henderson, ever the skeptic, laughed off the warnings as superstition. Sarah, his wife, felt a flicker of doubt but brushed it aside, focusing instead on her children, Timmy and Emily, who were already running up the grand staircase, their laughter echoing through the halls. The first night passed uneventfully, though Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The house was eerily silent, the kind of quiet that seemed to listen. She told herself it was just the creaks and groans of an old building adjusting to its new occupants. Mark, ever the rationalist, reassured her, attributing her unease to exhaustion. But as the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere in the house began to change. At first, it was small things, a door that wouldn't stay closed, a draft in a room with no windows open. Items would go missing and then reappear in places no one had left them. Sarah tried to laugh it off, but a growing sense of unease gnawed at her. One night, as she was putting away dishes, she heard it for the first time, a faint whisper, so soft it was almost imperceptible. She froze, her heart pounding, but when she turned, the kitchen was empty. She chalked it up to her imagination. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, more distinct. Sarah couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakably urgent, almost pleading. She told Mark, who dismissed it as wind or the pipes settling. But the unease followed her, a constant weight pressing down on her chest. The children began to notice things too. Timmy, only 8 years old, came to her one morning with wide, fearful eyes. "Mommy," he said, his voice trembling, "there's a lady in my room at night. She watches me from the window." Sarah's blood ran cold. She tried to reassure him, telling herself it was just a bad dream. But that same night, Emily woke up screaming. There in the walls, she cried, clutching her blanket as tears streamed down her face. Sarah held her close, her own fear bubbling just beneath the surface. Mark, ever the pragmatist, remained unconvinced. "It's just the kids adjusting to a new place," he said. "They'll settle down." But Sarah saw the unease in his eyes, the way he glanced over his shoulder when he thought no one was looking. One afternoon, while cleaning out the attic, Mark stumbled upon an old journal tucked away in a dusty chest. The leather binding was cracked, the pages yellowed with age. He opened it to find strange symbols scrawled across the pages, interspersed with frantic, almost illegible writing. One entry caught his eye: "The house is alive. It watches. It waits. If you're reading this, it's already too late." He closed the journal abruptly, a chill running down his spine. He didn't tell Sarah about it, not wanting to feed into her growing paranoia. But the house seemed to sense his discovery. The activity intensified. Shadows darted across the walls, impossible to pin down. The whispers became a constant presence, a low hum that seemed to emanate from the very bones of the house. Sarah began waking up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced she was being watched. One night, she saw it, a dark figure standing at the foot of her bed, its hollow eye staring into hers. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. When she finally blinked, it was gone, but the feeling of its presence lingered. The children's nightmares grew worse. Timmy started drawing pictures of shadowy figures with empty eyes. Emily refused to sleep alone, insisting that they were watching her. Sarah found scratches on the walls, words etched deep into the plaster that seemed to shift and change whenever she tried to read them. Mark still tried to rationalize it, but even he couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread. One night, during a fierce storm, the house revealed its true nature. Thunder roared, and lightning illuminated the darkened rooms in brief, terrifying flashes. The family was gathered in the living room when a deafening bang echoed through the house, rattling the windows and causing the chandelier to sway ominously. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Mark grabbed a flashlight and went to investigate. "Stay here," he told Sarah and the children. But as he ascended the staircase, the flashlight flickered and went out. Sarah called after him, but there was no reply, only the faint sound of footsteps growing fainter. When Mark didn't return, Sarah decided to look for him. She told the children to stay together and headed upstairs, her heart pounding. The hallway stretched longer than she remembered, the darkness almost tangible. She called out his name, but the only response was the echo of her own voice. Suddenly, she heard it, his voice, faint and distorted, coming from behind a door at the end of the hall. "Sarah," it called, but it didn't sound right. It was Mark's voice, but twisted and human. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. The room beyond was cold, impossibly so. It felt like stepping into a different world. The air was heavy, thick with an unseen presence. In the center of the room stood a mirror, old and cracked. Sarah approached it, and as she did, her reflection began to change.